Alright, part 4 of this brake overhaul on this car. So this time we're focusing on the rears. We just did the parking brakes. Now we got to put the rear rotors and caliper and pads on and the hoses back here. So we're going to take care of that, and if we have time in this video we'll also do the brake master and booster. So I already did the other side. The other side was a pain because the parking brake cables are seized up, I guess. They were really stuck. So it took some penetrating fluid and a pry bar to unstick them, and I went under the car to the adjuster nut where it splits off, and I just loosened it as much as I can to give as much slack to the back cables as possible. And yeah, that was preventing me from getting the rotor on because the parking brake was always engaged, and whole mess. But I think it's all fixed now. The cable is really loose, so I'm gonna have to address it later by going under and tightening it. And yeah, I just gotta make sure whenever I get the chance that when someone pulls the parking brake, the cables are actually moving and they're not totally seized. Otherwise I'll have to get all new cables. Normally these type of cables actually last pretty good. Like if you have a drive-by cable throttle, you never really replace that cable because they always last. So but I mean, when the car just sits forever, that's what happens. So we'll see if I have to replace it or if I can salvage it. Ideally I'd like to salvage it because as you can guess, it's starting to get pricey, and right now, since I just moved, saving a little bit of money would be a good idea, but I don't want to cheap out on safety, so we're gonna find that happy medium. Alright, so we got the parking brake drum all set up. We got our rotor here. Let's clean up the rotor and let's put it on. New rotors always have a film on them, so I mounted up backwards, spray a little bit, and wipe it off. The film that's on them is to prevent it from rusting while it's sitting, which is good. But you might as well just wipe it off. That way none of that soaks into your brake pads. Alright, and so before I do the front side of the rotor, doing brake jobs, I always put a little coat of anti-seize on. Now I already washed the hub down with brake clean, so you'd want to make sure that's nice and clean first, but it's all good. So I'm just going to put a little thin coat of anti-seize. Lost you there. Alright, little coat of anti-seize. The brush stuff, you really should just put it on your finger and rub it in, but this stuff gets really messy. Oh, and you can probably tell I chiseled the heads off of the rivets. Since the new rotor doesn't come with a slot for rivets, you had to either grind the heads down or just chisel them off, and I just chiseled them off. Otherwise the rotor wouldn't sit flat, flush. It's okay to get a little on the hub part. I mean, there's really no such thing as too much anti-seize as long as you're not getting it on your brake pads. That would be bad. Alright, and then rotor on. So new parking brake, so everything I have just as tight as possible, so there should be nothing to worry about. It should fit on. I mean, I know it will because I did it before. I double checked after the other side didn't. But yeah. So then there's 2 extra holes, and you just got to make sure. I think it will only work one way, but you just got to make sure the hole at the bottom lines up with your star wheel so you can actually adjust. Now I'm just going to wipe off a bit of the extra and spray some brake clean if I can find it. really too much extra, because when you're working it just gets everywhere. That's the bad thing. So I need to spray the front down again. Alright, well, now I got my good rag, so I'm just going to give it a nice spray over. I just put the rear rubber brake line, or the soft brake line, it's not rubber. I got my caliper all set up. I don't know if you're supposed to put grease on these. Like normally you put grease on the pistons where they rub against the brake pads. That's what I did. If it doesn't need it, well, it will help keep it a little bit quieter, I guess. My glove is ripping, of course. Alright, so let's stick this on there. So to compress the caliper and the brake pads, so the piston and the caliper, you just use your fingers. Really neat design. It's a little bit tricky because you gotta have it compressed while placing it onto the rotor. So you just gotta squeeze as hard as you can and just kind of line it up. There we go. I just wasn't lined up because I couldn't see anything. And then make sure you can get it going with a few threads before you either use an impact gun, if you can fit it, or your wrench socket combo stuff. So always get the top one first. There's my light. And then the bottom one, you stick the bolt in, lift up a little on the caliper, and it should line up. So for the hard brake line, you got the little spring thing. This is just a protector, since it's going right over, I don't even know what this is called, it's going directly above your half shaft back here. It's just to protect it in case it hits metal, to save the line a little. So I'm going to start the far side in, and just thread it in a little bit, and then you gotta kind of force it to go into the rear caliper part. So definitely a two-handed job. Gotta find it first. It's got a long ways to go. So you can put your backhand over at the first bend and just kind of push it that way with your other hand right here on the fitting to screw it into place once you line it up. So the small ones are 3/8 and the big ones are 5/8, I think. So these fitting, or this hard line, it doesn't have like O-rings or anything, because the way the seal is, they butt up close together. Actually, one I think goes inside the other, and then once you screw the fitting on, that's it. The seal is made. So we'll see right away if it's leaking. Just you gotta hurry up. Once you fill it up with fluid, if it's leaking, just gotta hurry up and tighten it more. So, all right. So that's done. Rear calipers, pads, rotors, all that, and the brake lines—they're all done. So the rear is taken care of. I did also adjust the shoes using a screwdriver until I felt resistance, and actually these are like self-adjusting style drum shoes for the parking brake. So you actually want to make it a little too tight at first, especially since they're brand new. They have to go through a braking process, so I made them a little extra tight. So yeah, you pretty much go to like you feel a good amount of friction, then back off a couple, and then you're good. Still got to adjust the parking brake cable. That will be a different day. As you can see, I got the door open. I had to open it to put into neutral. I had the car in first gear, but I had to put in neutral to make sure I could spin the wheels. And when you jack Corvettes up on 4 jack stands, the door won't close. So it's a pretty common thing. People say like they loosen their T-tops, or they open their doors before jacking up, because just the way it is, the car bends. It has a little play and give to it. But so the remaining of the time, the car door is going to be cracked. So here is the front brake lines. We got the really long one. That's the crossover from I think it's the proportioning valve to the front passenger side, and then we got the driver's side one. So I'm going to do the driver's side first. It came with a little tag just saying which one's which, but you can tell. I left the tag on over there because it says that there's a bend over there that I need to make, because they did that for packaging reasons. So we'll see how that goes. It should be like just hand bend. So. Alright, going under the car, you can see these two lines. These are what we need to remove. So this would be this car's version of a proportioning valve. This is what equally sends brake pressure, so one side doesn't lock up and the other side doesn't. Man, I got spider webs all over this engine now. Alright, well, gotta make sure this comes out. I thought it went to the master cylinder originally, I guess. Those lines that I was replacing, so I never even checked here. But no, it goes there's two lines up here that go straight up to the master cylinder, so that's what size is this? There we go. Alright, so I'm just gonna hit it and then rock it back, because I gotta be really careful it doesn't strip. We got the old brake line out, as you can see. Passenger side, driver's side's a short one. It is pliable, like you can bend it. I think the same thing goes with this one, where you can just bend it with your hands, but you just don't want to bend it too far and then it can kink or snap. It really was in pretty good condition, other than the fittings being stripped out on the caliper side. So yeah, so it's held in with a bunch of, there's these bolts, and then these bolt to the front core support, or actually I think it's the front subframe cross member, something like that. Yep, so lots of these, that's what keeps it into place. I'm going to go ahead and I should do the passenger side, because that's the long one. That's going to be a pain. Man, it's been a couple hours. That was a struggle. Got the new front brake lines in. I was going to try to show, but it was a fight. So the line that goes from this front driver's side, front driver's side to the proportioning valve area, that's really easy. Yeah, that's no problem at all. The problem is the one that goes from that proportioning valve and then it cuts by the subframe all the way to that wheel. That's a pain, because it's really long and it's pre-fitted, and they made one bend so it can fit in the package, but as I was doing it, I saw there's like a whole section where the bends are just off, and so yeah, so I did the best I could. If you see, these lines are stacked on top of each other on this bracket. I kind of had to fold the bracket because there was just no way to get them to go side by side like they're supposed to from the factory. This line had way too much of a bend, and you don't see this stuff until it's too late. So I just don't have a way to bend it enough, unless I took it all apart and used my hand. And really, I'm not making this like a show car or as factory as possible, so this will do. But if you are looking to keep your car as original as possible, you're gonna have to give these a good extra bend before you even put them in. So then I'll show you over here. So the line crosses over and falls down there. You can see a little bit. Oh, and by the way, if you couldn't tell already, this is stainless steel line. There's supposed to be a clip there. It just was not lining up. It's because of down here, there's some bends that are just wonky. Let's see if I can get a good view. So going under the car, you can see the stainless steel brake line. This was pretty good. Everything to this point was good. It's just right about here. Right here where this bend starts. That's just off. That bend isn't supposed to be there. And it's messing up everything else over there, and I don't know. I was not able to bend that by hand. Not with the whole thing attached. So, same thing with the other smaller line. You could probably just do trial and error, try fitting it, and if it doesn't fit, pull it out, make a bend, and then put it back. But here's where it connects to, and yeah. So that's the brake lines. Got quite a bit done today. And sorry about it's being dark. It's dark now, but I did end up taking quite a bit of a break in between for lunch and all that. Alright, so the last thing we got to do is replace the master cylinder and the brake booster. Fortunately, that should be a pretty straightforward job, and hopefully we should not run into any issues. But as I was under the car, you could definitely see where the seal between the master to the booster is just leaking brake fluid, and yeah, it's time to be replaced. So yeah, you'll either see that in the next clip or next video.